You talk about the enemy within. There's enemies, America's enemies outside. The enemy within is a pretty ominous phrase if you're talking about other Americans.
I think it's accurate. I think it's accurate.
Who are you talking about?
And,
the enemy?
I heard that. They say, the enemy.
I'm talking with Olivia Julianna today, a Gen Z political activist who is from a swing state. Is it fair to call Texas a swing state now?
I like to say it's the biggest swing state in the country, but I think I might be a little bit biased in saying that.
I think you might be as well, but so am I. My parents still live in Texas, and I am inching them closer to voting for Colin Allred. They've already given up on Trump. Thank God. I think there is a sea change happening. But before we get into that, I have to get your reaction to Trump doubling down on this comment about the enemy within. It seems like this happens every time he says something outrageous. I tend to let the media do its thing and hope that we move on and I don't have to pile on. But here he is again, and he's talking about us, right? He's talking about your generation, which is standing up and pushing back and demanding its rights, especially the women of your generation. How do you feel when he talks about fellow Americans as enemies?
I think the natural reaction to hearing things like that for most rational people is to be outraged because, very clearly, this is a angry old man in cognitive decline who doesn't care about his country, doesn't care about the people in it. But when I hear him talk about things like this, in my head, I kind of just think, womp, 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 womp. Here he goes again, running his mouth. And, at some point, I find myself asking myself, how could you possibly support this man? I genuinely do not understand what the argument for supporting him is. He has the worst economic policy. He has some of the worst foreign policy of any president we've had in recent American history. Some of the worst social policies. Genuinely, there is nothing redeemable about this man when it comes to leading this country. And I think that this statement here really is just the cherry on top of the cake of showing just the genuine disdain that he has for America. If you are running to be president of the United States and you don't support and want to protect all of your constituents, then you shouldn't be running and you shouldn't be allowed to sit in that seat in that office.
I think that hits the nail on the head about his entire approach to leadership, air quotes, to governing. He's really speaking to a fraction of America, the Americans who supported him, and the rest, especially if we speak out and especially if we challenge his more authoritarian impulses, we're the enemy. And, I hear you. After a while, it becomes noise, except if he becomes commander in chief, he has the full force of the American military. He has all the levers of the American government. And what really frightens me is that the checks and balances we once had are no longer dependable. The Congress, we know they won't check him. His party wouldn't hold him accountable for clearly impeachable offenses. And now the Supreme Court has given him a pass, total immunity for anything done under the guise of the office of the president. And your generation has more to lose than anyone if this is the way America goes.
Yeah, I kind of feel like this is a culmination point that so many people in my generation have kind of come to not necessarily understand, but get accustomed to is, for so many of us, people got to understand the frame of reference that we're coming up with. And the frame of reference is, Donald Trump has been running for president or has been president for the last 8 years? No, it's been more than 8 years, has it? I don't even know because it's been a majority of my life, right. Most of us in my age cohort, we were born after 9/11. I was in kindergarten when Barack Obama was elected president of the United States for the first time. I think I was in either 8th or 9th grade when Trump was elected president. And so, for us, we've kind of been just watching for the most of our adult life, us coming into our adult life. We've been watching this guy just chip away at our institutions and our freedoms. And I don't even think that it's, you older people look at this and they're like, this is just horrible. This is the destruction of our country. This is awful. And, people would think that young people have this innate desire to just, stop him in his tracks. I think other people need to understand this is normal. This is normal to us. This kind of disruption and hatred and bigotry and insanity that Donald Trump has brought into our government. That has been the way the government has been for the majority of our cognizant lives. And so I think that there are a lot of young people like me who, Donald Trump was our wake-up moment and our wake-up call when we were younger, coming into politics. For me, living in Texas, I remember going to school the day after he won the election in 2016, and I seen kids in my classes whose parents were immigrants crying because they thought their parents were going to get deported. And that is the frame of reference we have. And I really do. I have faith in the American people, and I have faith in young people that they're going to make sure that this man is not president of the United States again. I really do. I really do have faith in that.
I do too. But one of the things that does concern me, and you just nailed it. I asked Adam Mockler this just a few days ago when he was on the show, is that by definition, Trump has normalized this mode of politics, like the name calling, the immigrant bashing, the misogyny, the threatening to use the military against political enemies. It is now normal because he has been doing it for so long that an entire generation of new voters thinks this is how American politics operates. And that is just, it's tragic to me, but I'm glad to hear that it is a wake up call, that that enough people aren't just taking it for granted. But I want to build on your observation about the threats against immigrants, because this has become now the centerpiece of the Trump-Vance message. And they test everything. They test the attacks on women. They test the attacks on environmentalism and everything else. The attacks on immigrants have stuck, and they are going with it. Yeah. And it says terrible things about America, but I think it has also awakened a fierce pushback among those of us who see where this road ends. I want to play this quick clip from his, I think it's Pennsylvania rally, again, bashing immigrants.
If Kamala Harris wins this election, she will flood Pennsylvania cities and towns with illegal migrants from all over the world, and Pennsylvania will never be the same. You will never be the same. When I'm president, all migrant flights to Pennsylvania will stop immediately. By the way, all migrant flights. Not only to Pennsylvania, everywhere.
You're from Texas. I'm from Ohio. I mean, I think I could safely say every state in the union depends on immigrants to function, to thrive. Immigrants built this country, and they continue to make it better. Why do you think this attack is so effective?
I think it's effective for a few reasons. I think it's effective, number one, because the fact of the matter is there are, whether we like to admit this or not, there are a lot of racist people in this country. There just are. And, Donald Trump has done a really great job at stoking the flames of bigotry. And, I'm not going to sit here and I'm not going to say Donald Trump is racist. You can say that if that's what you believe. I'm not going to say it. What I'm going to say is that the racists believe that he's their guy. And so, I think the reason
the Nazis believe he's their guy.
He's their guy. I think you got to ask yourself, if I'm voting with, the Nazis, if I'm voting with people like that, am I voting for the right person? I digress. But I think the reason why it's also so effective is if you look at a group of people who this messaging is really effective with, it's really effective with young men. And it's really effective with young white men. And, I think that people will say, well, it's just because it's racist, just because it's like, I don't think that that's what it is. These people, Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, they are saying that these immigrants are coming into the United States. They're taking our jobs, that they're going to hurt and attack our women, that they're going to do all this. They are feeding into this patriarchal system that's been created, and they're stoking the fear into young men while they are also simultaneously trying to reinforce this idea of traditional masculinity. You have to be the father. You have to be the husband. You have to be the provider. You have to make a lot of money. But by the way, it's going to be really hard for you to do those things. If we have all of these immigrants coming here, they're the reason why you can't get a job. They're the reason why you can't buy a house. They're a reason why, your family might not be safe. They are making these men, these young men, feel inadequate by villainizing immigrants. I think that is something that we really don't hear talked about enough as to why that part of this is so effective. And I think something else that doesn't get pointed out near enough when we're talking about this, because the fact of the matter is, when people who are inside politics, the way that we perceive these things, the way that we talk about it, it's so much different than how the general electorate talks about it. The overwhelming majority of this country, people who live in, states as far away from the southern border as you can get, they want to secure the border. They want more money put into fixing the immigration system. The problem is that Republicans have dominated this conversation for so long that now we're having a polarized conversation about immigration. So much so that people forget that when Donald Trump was in office, he wasn't just trying to stop illegal immigration. He was trying to stop legal immigration, and not just legal immigration of people who were just coming to America for a better life. He tried to stop and actively stopped the immigration of highly skilled, highly trained professionals from other countries who wanted to come to America because they were the best in their career fields. He stopped those people from coming to this country. So it's not just about, we want people who are gonna contribute. We want people who are gonna, make America great again. They just don't want immigrants, period. They don't want immigrants coming here, period. Regardless of what language you speak, regardless of what the color of your skin is, if you are not someone who is from the United States, you are not allowed here. And that's a problem when we have a declining workforce, when we have infrastructure that is severely behind and under date because Republicans couldn't get an infrastructure bill passed for my entire life, damn near. And when we have declining birth rates because people don't want to have children and can't afford to have children, we need immigration, and we need highly skilled immigration. And so this is just another example of Donald Trump and J.D. Vance and these Republicans on the far right allowing their bigotry to damage our country when we should be the leaders on this issue and showing the rest of the world how you have a comprehensive immigration system that strengthens your economy and strengthens your culture.
It's Ken Harbaugh. Need to take a quick break here because I wanted to let you know that I have finally decided to take the plunge and figure out social media. The Ken Harbaugh Show is now up on TikTok and Instagram and Reels and Threads. I've got a great team pulling all this content together. Please check out the links in the show notes and follow the Ken Harbaugh Show pretty much everywhere. Thanks, as always, for the amazing support. None of this would be happening without you. Lomi might just be the smartest appliance I own. It's like having an eco-friendly assistant that handles all my food waste. Lomi lets me turn my food scraps into dirt with the push of a button. It's a countertop electric composter that takes my waste and transforms it into nutrient-rich dirt in less than 4 hours. I run it while I sleep, just like my dishwasher. No more smelly trash bins, and it's so quiet you barely notice it running. Since I got my Lomi, I'm taking out way less garbage. I used to struggle with 3 full bags of trash every week. Now I'm down to just 1. Just last night after dinner, I tossed all the leftovers into Lomi, hit the button, and by morning it was dirt instead of a smelly garbage bag. What I love most is how much waste I'm keeping out of landfills. Less trash means less methane. And with Lomi, I'm turning that waste into nutrient-rich dirt that my plants absolutely love. It's so satisfying to know I'm doing my part for the environment without any extra effort. Getting my Lomi was one of the best decisions I've made for my home. I used to feel guilty about how much food waste I was tossing every week, but Lomi has completely shifted that. If you're ready to start making a positive environmental impact and make cleanup a breeze, Lomi is exactly what you need. Head over to lomi.com/Ken and use promo code Ken to get $50 off your Lomi. That's $50 off when you go to lomi.com/Ken and use promo code Ken at checkout. Say goodbye to food waste and hello to a cleaner, greener kitchen with Lomi. And with the holidays coming up, Lomi makes the perfect gift for someone on your shopping list. I'm going to caveat your observation that they don't want immigrants here by saying, unless it's an election year and unless it's done in a way that hurts Democrats, because there was a immigration bill, there was a compromise promoted by the most conservative Republican in the Senate, Lankford from Oklahoma, and Trump killed it. Trump killed it because he wanted America to suffer under the Biden-Harris administration in an election year.
Well, Trump and Ted Cruz and a couple other handful of conservatives killed it, which doesn't surprise me. You know, Colin Allred, he's running for Senate against Ted Cruz. Self-promo here. But Colin said something that's really stuck with me, and he said this during the debate too, which is Republicans like Ted Cruz love to treat the border like a safari. They play dress up, they go put on their clothes, and they come down to the border, and they look at people there like they're animals in a cage, and then they leave. Then they don't do anything to try to solve the problem. You know, Donald Trump was president for 4 years. There are Republicans in the Senate who are trying to solve this problem now. Ted Cruz has been in the Senate for 12 years. What if this is such a problem? Why didn't you solve this when you were president? You know, and that's not just coming from me. That's coming from, Chip Roy, Republican congressional member from here in Texas, who went on the House floor and was talking about, people were giving Biden a hard time saying, well, he needs to use executive action to do this, this, and this, and this. And Chip Roy said, all due respect, if that's the case, why didn't Donald Trump do that when he was president? And that's the exact question there is, if this is such a problem, why didn't you solve it when you were president? And why are you relying on it now? And why did you kill the bill that we were using to try to solve this problem?
You got to give us an update on Texas. I know it is an uphill battle, but Colin Allred has done something incredible down there. How are you feeling?
Brother, I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted. I feel great. And you know what? I posted something on TikTok the other day about this. It's just, I feel very privileged and honored that, my first Senate election voting, I get to vote for Colin Allred because he genuinely is just one of the best people. I've been involved with the campaign since April. I'm the co-chair of Young Texans for Allred. And getting to go to all these different parts of the states. I've been to Waco, Dallas, San Antonio, Austin, Houston, getting El Paso, getting to go to all these different places and talk to people. It's really brought to me, not only do people hate Ted Cruz, he's just the worst. People can't stand him. But Colin is just such a good, genuine person. And, People ask me, how do I feel about this race all the time? They're like, what do you think is going to happen? And the thing that I always like to say is if Barack Obama can win the state of Indiana, anything can happen. We never know. We never know what's going to happen. But what I will say with this is I feel pretty good. I feel good because we watched a guy who is a Supreme Court constitutional lawyer who was nearly the Republican nominee for president of the United States, who's known for running his mouth and talking smack. We watched him completely off his game in a debate. Ted Cruz looked nervous. He looked scared. He stumbled for a good while there. And I think that that's a really good example about how I feel about this race is, Ted Cruz and his team. They underestimated how well Colin Allred was going to perform in that debate. And to that, I got to say, Colin Allred is a former NFL player. He studies game tape. You think he was going to come prepared, but he's also a former voting rights lawyer. Colin he's a lawyer too. And I think that that's a really great example of, people, they counted him out in the debate. They counted Colin out in 2018. They said he had a 10% chance of winning his congressional race because he was running in like a R+10 district. He ended up winning by 7 points. So, I feel optimistic about Texas, but a large part of that is because I just think that Colin Allred is that damn good. And honestly, I'm really happy I get to vote for him. And I feel like I'm always going to remember that vote just because of how wonderful of a person he actually is.
Well, I wish I could too. For our outro, I want to roll that clip of Colin Allred holding Ted Cruz accountable for his actions on January 6th. I mean, I have much stronger feelings than that, but they are not PG. But here's Colin Allred at the debate with Ted Cruz.
You can't be for the mob on January 6th and for the officers. You can't. And it's not funny because you're a threat to democracy.
Sure.
I was on the House floor when we went through the votes. I remember when you objected to the results in Arizona. Y'all at home might remember where you were on January 6th, what you were doing. I know where I was and I know where he was. I remember when they told us to reach under our seats for these gas masks. I didn't know we had because they had deployed tear gas in the rotunda. The officers locked all the doors. We barred the doors the president walks through to deliver the State of the Union with furniture that we usually use to hold paper. And I texted my wife, Allie, who was 7 months pregnant with our son, Cameron, and at home with our son, Jordan, who wasn't yet 2. Whatever happens, I love you. I took off my suit jacket, and I was prepared to defend the House floor from the mob. At the same time, after he'd gone around the country lying about the election, after he'd been the architect of the attempt to overthrow that election, when that mob came, Senator Cruz was hiding in a supply closet. And that's okay. I don't want him to get hurt by the mob. I really don't. This election is his accountability. You cannot just be patriotic when your side wins. If for the first time in 250 years, this project of ours, this shared American project, that we did not have a peaceful transfer of power, the folks responsible have to be held accountable. That's why Liz Cheney has endorsed me, has got involved in this campaign, and is saying to Texans everywhere, do not put Ted Cruz back in a position of authority, because he's done it once, he'll do it again.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Meidas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.